Is my mic working? There it goes. Let's get started here. Up, there she is. So I will open the November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Los Altos Planning Commission. Stephanie, could you please establish a quorum?
Yes. Commissioner Disney. Okay, sorry. Maybe we'll start with Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Disney.
Is this roll call?
Yes.
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 Say yes again.
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Present.
Vice Chair Roach. Present. And Chair Beninado.
Yes.
We have all commissioners present.
All right, thank you. Our first order of business is going to be receiving comments from members of the public on matters not on our published agenda. We only take public comments from people who are here present, not those on Zoom. If you'd like to speak about an item that's on our agenda, that will come up at the appropriate time. We'd ask that you fill out a speaker card for the minutes purposes. And remember that we're now allowed to respond to questions or discuss your comments or act on anything that's not on the public agenda. So do we have any speakers for items not on the agenda? I have Jim Wing, but it's for item number 3, I believe, right, Jim? Okay. Stephanie? So nobody? Okay. Moving on. We're going to close public comments for items not on the agenda. Let's move on to the consent calendar. We have 2 items tonight, the 2025 Planning Commission meeting schedule and the minutes from our October 17th meeting. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners on those 2 items? Seeing none, are there any public comments on the consent calendar? No?
No.
All right. Can I have a motion on the consent calendar from somebody?
I make the motion to accept it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Vice Chair Roche with a second by Commissioner Steinle. Could we do a roll call on those?
Yes. Commissioner Disney,
Aye.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger. Yes. Vice Chair Roach.
Yes.
And Chair Beninado.
Yes.
It's a unanimous approval of the consent calendar.
Okay. The consent calendar is passed. Is something going on here or? All right. So we have 3 public hearings tonight. Well, two plus another item. We have a lot to cover. Thank you. We're going to start with item number 3. This is the project at 4896 El Camino Real. And our public hearing procedure is to receive staff's oral report, which supplements the written report that was in our meeting packets. Then the applicant can respond to any issues or questions up to 10 minutes. Then we'll have commissioners ask clarifying questions of the staff or the applicant. And after that, public comment. And after that, we will close the public portion and move on to the commission discussion and the vote. So I'd like to invite staff to present item 3. I think it's going to be Ja. Is that correct?
Yes, this is Jazz speaking.
Hi,
Thank
Ja.
you. And I'm sharing the PowerPoint right now. Good evening, dear planning commissioners. This is Jia Liu, Associate Planner. Before you, I'm presenting a new mixed-use project at 4896 El Camino Real for your consideration today. The subject property is located on the southwest corner of Jordan Avenue and El Camino Real. The surrounding land uses include multifamily residential to the adjacent west and south of the property, Across Jordan Avenue, it is existing commercial use. Across the street of El Camino Real, which is in the city of Mountain View jurisdiction, there are commercial and office developments exist as well. The lot area size is 36,590 square feet, roughly about 0.84 acres. Currently, the site has 2 uses, Jack in the Box, a fast food restaurant to the north, and a single-family residence to the south. The zoning of the subject property is CT, commercial thoroughfare, with the land use designation of thoroughfare commercial. This slide provides the current site conditions for the fast food restaurant Jack in the Box and the single-family dwelling to the south. The proposed project is a mixed-use development combining residential condominiums and office space. The residential component includes a total of 33 units, with 3 moderate income units and 2 very low income units. The office space has a total of 16,140 square feet in size. For the parking will be accommodated via 2-level underground parking, and no surface parking is proposed. Other land improvements include new landscaping with trees, shrubs, ground cover, new hardscape, and other landscaping amenities. With regard to the site circulation, there is 1 vehicle access point along Jordan, as shown in this red arrow. And there are 2 pedestrian access points. One is adjacent to the vehicle access on Jordan Avenue, and the other is designed to face El Camino Real. For the tree protections, currently there are 17 protected trees on site, and due to the hazardous trees conditions, as well as the grading limits for the proposed project, 13 of those trees will be removed, and 4 large oak trees will be protected along the rear property line to the left on the side, and 2 street trees facing El Camino Real will also be preserved during construction. There will be a total of 18 new trees planted as part of the landscaping plan to compensate the loss of the protected trees removal, which will exceed the minimum 1:1 replacement ratio as required in the tree protection ordinance. The design of the project features contemporary architectural style, incorporating flat roof with parapet walls. High-quality materials are used, including cement, plaster exterior finish with stone veneer and metal panel accents, metal awnings, stainless steel balcony railing, and forecourts are also incorporated into the 4-sided elevations to give additional architectural enhancement, articulation, and visual appeal. Density bonus is another key component of the project. First, the proposed project density complies with the maximum density that is allowed per the density bonus law. Although the developer is not pursuing for additional residential density, due to the 2 very low income units proposed, it makes the project eligible to density bonus law, subject to 1 concession, unlimited waivers, and parking requirements. As part of the project, there are 10 waivers requested, and no concessions are sought by the developer. At last, the project complies with all the objective development standards, except as modified by the requested waivers pursuant to the state density bonus law. For the California Environmental Quality Act, the project is categorically exempt from the environmental review under Section 15332, infill development projects of the CEQA guidelines. With all the information that staff presented, staff now recommends the Planning Commission that approve the construction of the mixed-use project at 4896 El Camino Real, subject to the listed findings and conditions as provided in the staff report. Staff now concludes the presentation and happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your listening.
Great. Thank you, Ja. So we now have a time if the applicant would like to say anything or address any issues, please feel free. We have, do we have a 10-minute time limit? Is that correct? Is someone,
It's 10 minutes and 5 minutes rebuttal, but
okay,
you'll have an opportunity to ask staff questions as well.
okay. Is someone have a timer?
Yeah, I'm going to do the timer.
Okay.
Well, I'm here just to answer questions. The project is very straightforward and meets 330 requirements. So I'm here out of courtesy for any questions that the public or the planning commission.
Oh,
has.
okay, great. You're Mr. Vidovich, is that
Ye-
right? Oh,
yes,
great.
sir.
Thank you. I have that's what this card is for. Is just you're here and okay, great. Well, we'll see if there are any questions for the applicant as well. But we're gonna move on to any clarifying questions from the commission on the written report or the oral report or for the applicant. So, Commissioner Mensinger?
Yeah, I have just a couple. We received several letters from different community groups regarding the distribution of the below market rate units in terms of both size and where they were in the building, that they're not equivalent, which many people say is required by the law. Can you go to address that?
Yes. The BMR units are larger than the ones you have downtown. They're appropriate for an affordable house. And we have put them on all floors, including the top floor. So there's no discrimination on where they are. And affordability, size is a factor for affordability. And if you have a larger unit, a super large unit, it does cost more. And so it's cost more on the dues and things like that. So I think that they're bigger than what you have downtown. And yes, they are smaller than the units that are there.
And I believe we did receive a letter this afternoon from legal counsel. I don't know if everybody saw that, but maybe someone on staff wants to address that letter.
Yeah, so Assistant City Manager Nick Zorns. So I want to somewhat actually commend the applicant's outside legal counsel of Cox Castle. They actually formulated a response specific to public comments that were received by housing advocacy groups. And myself and the city attorney both concur with the legal opinions of Cox Castle representation for this project. What I will simplify and say is that the city of Los Altos has not produced enough sufficient below market rate units in order for us to be able to enforce the multifamily housing affordable regulations in regards to the size and comparability requirements. We have not done a significant, essentially, production at this point. So HCD has opined in multiple jurisdictions in the last several years is that you cannot require size requirements of affordable units until you've essentially started to create the essentially the paper trail of those affordable units. So although it is in our existing multifamily affordable housing section, the citing of the Housing Accountability Act, as well as the Banker Hill case, which was actually included in the staff report prior to public comments from outside legal representing the applicant, as well as the housing advocates. So we do concur from the city's position that the size and mix of units is adequate and sufficient to meet the intent of our ordinance as well as housing law.
Thank you. My other question just is really for staff. We have, just to confirm, we have no discretion on the waivers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Last question. What size replacement trees are you planning on? Is that specified in the landscaping plan?
I'm hard of hearing.
Oh, I'm
so-
sorry. What size replacement trees? You mentioned, I think it was 14 trees were going to be planted to replace the ones taking out. What size will those trees be?
I believe it's in the report. They're
Okay,
24 inch
24.
box.
Okay, that's what I,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Would anyone else like to go? Any other commissioners? Go ahead.
Make sure this is a
Get it close so they can hear.
appropriate comment. Unit 207 is a three-bedroom affordable unit. Looking at the floor plan, it looks like it only has one bathroom, where everything else has, unless I missed a bathroom. And I'm wondering, given three bedrooms, why it couldn't have the second bathroom? And I know it backs up to the recycling closet in the corridor. Wondered if that, and a comment, if the bathroom couldn't be added in part of that. And then adjacent to unit 207 is the health and fitness area. And if it couldn't be put, bathroom couldn't be put into the recycling area, eliminate that, could the recycling be moved over? And basically what I'm saying, be nice to have that affordable unit have two bathrooms. That's a question.
Well, it's an interesting question. I grew up with one bathroom and 5 people.
Likewise.
I have a lot of units where we have one bathroom, and it's adequate. It works, and it's all about affordability.
Thank you.
Is that your only question? Okay. Anybody from this side? Go ahead, Maris.
In terms of the waivers for the forecourt requirement, it just seemed like maybe the applicant and staff maybe had a different understanding, because the staff report, it says that the forecourt is being reduced from 15 feet to 4 feet, but then in the applicant's density bonus report, it says it is 15 feet. So it's not really a question per se. It's just, I think that should be cleared up, because I was a little confused on who had the right understanding of the forecourt waiver. So, yeah, I don't know if staff saw that.
Commissioner Ahi, I believe in the density bonus per the applicant, that 15 feet refers to the width. And in the waiver staff report, it's referred to the depth. So the depth is reduced from 15 feet to 4 feet.
Okay. So the 15 feet is compliant, but the 4 feet is not compliant.
The width complies with the code, but the depth does not comply with the code.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Was that it? Yep. All right. Commissioner Steinle?
I have a question about storage within the thing, whether it's the applicant or Ja who can answer this. I am the president of an HOA, and apart from water intrusion, the next most pressing issue is where am I going to put my junk? And I may have missed something in the plans, but can you talk about storage? There are closets within the units, but that's never adequate. How about storage outside the units?
There's 2 underground parking areas, and there is several lockers there that will be made out of concrete, and we have at the gardens over there, we have it in the garage, but they steal the bikes all the time. And these bikes are
every so often they'll
right.
call a
So
few
these
from the
these
herd,
things are going to be secure,
Yeah.
and they're available. There is a community one, and then there are separate ones where people could have them. If you look on the plan on the first and second below grade,
Are these for sale, or are separately, or are they assigned by units, or how's this?
they'll be
distributed?
allocated. They'll be allocated.
By, well, that just means they'll be handed out. How would you plan to allocate them?
Probably the people that want it could go to any particular unit.
Okay. Are there enough so that, I mean, how many storage areas are there relative to the number of units?
There's a community space. I think it's on, if the plan is there. There's a community space. I think there's at least 1 or 2. And then there's probably 12 or 14 that could be individual. They
And
could
we
be
say
individual.
community space, is this behind locked doors, or what form is this actually going to take?
They're in the garage,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have a door, and they would be concrete.
And so it would be anybody that can get in, a resident can
Well-
get in and put their stuff in the
If
big room?
they have one that's just for them, that
Mhm.
would be, they would have a key.
Right.
If they go to a community one,
Mhm.
everybody would have the key.
Okay, it would be locked, and you'd have to have the key.
Yes, you
And if
have
there's
to.
space, you could put your stuff there, and if there isn't space, then you're out of
Yeah.
luck.
The biggest thing I find is
Mm-hmm.
bikes. The people, they really, really like the bikes, and particularly Los Altos, yeah.
Okay.
Just our experience from the gardens. We built the gardens across from Chef Chu's, and there's
Well,
underground parking.
I also have considerable experience right around the corner from there, so.
Oh, you do?
so, yes, so
Okay.
that's why I'm asking.
okay.
Okay.
Did
And
I
there- I
answer it
think-
okay?
I believe there were also some storage on some of the balconies. There seemed to be a closet outside on some of those. Is that accurate?
Yes, but those are minimal. I think downstairs is where you've got your volume.
More space?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if those were for water heaters or some other mechanical equipment.
They're essentially closets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those too. Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That's the only question I have.
Oh,
you.
okay. Do you have questions?
I have a question for the applicant.
All right, make sure the microphone,
Yeah, no, it was on.
just get it
Was
closer.
on. Okay, so I'm looking at the trees, and there's some really beautiful oak trees that are being, the plan is to take them out. And two of them have a considerable canopy over the street, so they're the two trees that are in front of the single-family residence now. And I think they will, I think they're going to interfere with the new sidewalk you're planning. So I understand why you want to take them out, but they are, they give a lot of, there's a big sense of place there because of those trees. So my question for you is, given that the plan we have only shows Category 2 deciduous trees, right? They're not big trees. They are, medium-sized. I think they get to like 40 feet. Deciduous trees, they will lose their leaves in the winter. This is a really big project. I mean, this is a really big building. My question is, would you or, the team be amenable or agreeable to adding back like a live oak to the front of the property, maybe towards the corner where there's more space?
In my house, I have the deciduous oaks, and we have it at the gardens also, and they're tall, they're good. I think they're pretty. You have to plant a tree at some point in time, so if there's a need for more trees, and I remember you, Katie.
Yes.
Yeah. So
The tree.
if you want to work with me, and I love trees, I love the deciduous one in particular because, you get winter, and then when it's going, it's pretty nice. Yeah, and they go tall. Better than the live oak. The live oak's green all the time, but it kind of goes like this. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I bring up the live oak is, one, that's what's there. And two, it's a tree that kind of will tolerate asymmetrical pruning. It's pretty forgiving. And so if it's going to be close to a building, you want a tree that you can kind of prune in such a way that it isn't growing into the building and it'll still be structurally sound. So that's why I was thinking of an oak, but I'm sure that there are deciduous oaks that, tolerate the same kind of pruning. So, okay, so it seems like the answer was yes. You're amenable to.
I'm amenable, and
Okay.
I would be glad to work with you,
Okay, okay.
Katie.
Well, you'd be working with staff.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you'd work with staff on that, but,
Yes.
okay, are there further questions?
I do have one question for staff. So the setback in the code for CT is 25 feet, the front setback. And the applicant is asking for a waiver of 20 feet. And I guess my concern is, okay, real estate on El Camino Real is really, really important because we don't know what the future is going to look like, if we're going to have wider bike lanes or wider sidewalks or a bus lane or whatnot. And I'm just wondering, what is this, what's the, is there a long-range plan for El Camino Real? So that's my first question. And are we allowing all buildings to be 20 feet set back in the front? So is that now the new prevailing pattern along El Camino?
Can I answer that one?
Sure.
All right. We designed everything for 25 feet, whole project ready to go. Fire department said, based on their equipment and everything, we had to move it 5 feet closer to the street. So we got a little more footage, but it cost us a lot of money to do it. And they felt, because of their ladder and the safety and everything, that they wanted it there, and they insisted on it. So it's hard to fight the fire department.
Because of the ladders and the access from El Camino.
Yes.
And I believe it's a waiver, so.
But it wasn't
No,
from
no, I
me.
get it, I get
It
it.
was from
Right.
the fire department.
So is that the new prevailing pattern is 25 feet front setback on El Camino?
20 now.
I mean, it's 20. So like the adjacent property to the right of this one, that's also 20 feet?
I'm not very clear about the adjacent property, whether it's at 20 feet or, whether it's exact at 20 feet. But I believe the property owner is correct that fire has the access requirements that requires a 20-foot front yard for the fire and safety perspective. And furthermore, the applicant requested a waiver to reduce the front setback. And as we mentioned, that there's no discretion really for the waivers. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I have a few questions for the applicant, actually, Mr. Vidovich. I saw, there were a number of EV parking spaces for the cars, and I couldn't tell if there would also be electric bicycle charging. Was that part of the plan, or?
Yes, there will be.
It is, so
Yes, there will be.
each bicycle spot or some number of them, or I didn't see it specified anywhere.
Every one of those lockers will have ability to
Charging?
to charge the bike. Yes.
Excellent. That's great. My next question is, the solar panels were referenced as future development or something. So is there something holding back doing the solar sooner rather than later, or you want to get into the building and see how it's going and then potentially put it on later, or what is the plan with regards to solar?
We will look at the solar. Solar is good, but we'll look at it as we go. But whatever we do, we're going to do it before we finish. But we just don't know what the solar is. It's hard to decide how to do it. Yes.
But there will be solar at some point.
Yes.
Okay. And then I was looking at the common areas, and there is a deck area on the third level that is in the middle of the courtyard area. I wasn't sure if there'd be barbecues out there or seating, or is it just an open pathway?
There's blocks there. There are places where the people can use it, and there is a door that is just for the maintenance people to keep the plants in there okay. Just the way it was built, and
Okay.
yeah.
But no seating or barbecues or other amenities.
only the individual people on their balconies would be able to have that.
Okay. And no roof deck, or like the only things I saw up there were mechanical and solar. And,
Correct. This project has big balconies. They have really big balconies.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for those. And let's see, let me just look through here. Oh, I had a question for staff. On the page 15 of the packet, there's a section entitled Roof Line and Roof Design Standards. And I was confused by this reference to 25 feet. It said, requires the length of a parapet segment on the third floor and above may not exceed 25 feet. The project requests a waiver to permit the parapet wall to exceed the maximum length of 25 feet. It didn't say how big it was going to be. So is that a typo, or is that just not spelled out?
The detailed length was not spelled out because the parapet wall basically aligns with the roof design and the forecourt.
Okay.
And it's going to be over 25 feet in length.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was it for me. So last call on questions. Anything else? We're good? All right. So with that, I think we're going to open the public portion so we can receive public comments. And I think let's see, this is on item number 3. So I think I have a card from Mr. Wing. I think that was the only submission, if you'd like to speak. We'll do 3 minutes since we don't have too many people. What's that? Oh, are there more speakers? Yeah, please turn them in and we'll.
Okay, for the record, I'm Jim Wing on Millerton Road. First of all,
Come close to the mic so everyone can hear you.
you got it now?
Yep.
You can also raise the podium if you wish, because you're.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do it this way. Get close. I like the pedestal design. I like the setbacks for landscaping on both sides. And particularly since Jordan is a safe routes to school, heavily car traveled and heavily student traveled. I like the 3 oaks that are at high risk. I saw mushrooms, I saw dripping sat, and they overhang the street. And yes, their time has come now. And this way, the sidewalk will be able to go all the way through to connect with the sidewalks on the other developments. The power pole. This is I think it's about 60 kV power pole, has to stay. We know from past history that PG&E will not move those. So it will be there. But I would recommend that either staff or developer to go ahead and there's an electrical field. And that field, if you live too close to it, there is a health risk to it, and there are standards for this. We ran into this, 10 or 15 years ago with Loyola Corners. And I don't know the exact numbers or the distances, but that calculation has to be done to ensure the health safety there. Also, too, the sidewalk on the drawing is really not per the California Vehicle Code. It needs to be upgraded. It's a simple upgraded. Also, the ADA is not shown, which there's a glided crosswalk there. And I did not hear or could not understand from the drawings how the garbage pickup is going to come. That might be a question for the developer has. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a card from Sarah Gwynn for item 1. I assume it's this item. Is that correct? Sure, but it is on this item? Yes. Okay, so Eric, would you like to go? Sure. Okay.
So we'll go through the questions first before answers.
There are no answers to public comment. Public comment is one way, and then we deliberate and take into account the public comment.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
So my name
3
is Eric
minutes,
Shea.
please.
My name's Eric Shea. I live in the Alton, the building next door to the proposed development.
Could you come close to the mic so the recording picks it up?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Of course. So a couple questions. First about the allocation of the parking spaces, whether or not they will be dedicated to condo owners or just shared among both condo owners as well as the office employees, and whether or not the current allocation is sufficient for the needs of the building. Second was also related question about garbage disposal, since it looks like the bins are currently stored in I believe it's the northwest corner of the building. If that area is fully enclosed, and how access works. Third question is regarding the placement of balconies and windows, if they are currently aligned with the ones in our building in the Alton, and whether or not that can possibly create any quality of life issues for residents on both sides. Last question is regarding the design of the first floor. Sorry, the design of the first floor parking. So it looks like the ground floor parking is currently fully exposed on what looks to be at least 3 sides, and whether or not there is an engineering reason for this, and if it would be possible to potentially enclose the side adjacent the Alton building.
All right, thank you. And Sarah, would you like to go? 3 minutes?
Hello, I'm Sarah Gwynn, and I also live at the Altan right next door.
Can we set the timer? I'm sorry, Sarah.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
I have a slight concern about the setback between the two buildings. I believe it's 10 feet in the proposal. I live on the second floor, and I think that with that setback, I will no longer get any sunlight. And it was just a general comment that I feel like if we were able to take some of the space on the Jordan Avenue side and move it to the side between the two buildings, that could really help quality of life for people in both buildings, both Altan and on the new development side. Just because if the lower 3 floors of both buildings are not able to get any natural sunlight during the day, then that could really hurt a lot of things, as well as the property value. So that's just it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? All right. I think we're good there. So we'll close the public hearing and move on to discussion. Just to remind commissioners, our discussion and debate must focus on what's in the published agenda and not stray from the agenda. There's an opportunity later in the meeting to propose future agenda items if we want to take up something. So right now, we're just focusing on the project in order. So who would like to start the discussion? Maris, please.
Okay. So the public comments from Jim Wing I thought were really helpful. I think he had good suggestions about pedestrian visibility and the safety concerns with bike lanes. So I hope that's taken into consideration. In terms of the BMR units, I agree with staff, what staff said, so I don't really have much to say. I do think that having the affordable units all next to a trash room or a mechanical room and none of them facing El Camino, I think it's not a great look. So I think that if we do need to create a better standard for that, so until we do, there's not much we can really say for that, but I would say that it just doesn't look that great as far as which ones were chosen. The parking, I'm fine with the parking reduction because of the density bonus. I do think that if the building finds that they need more residential parking, I think you could turn some of those spots into flex parking, where basically after office hours they could be for residential. That could be something in the CCNRs for the building, but I do think that's an option so that residents next door, if they're worried about the overflow parking, which I'm assuming that's what the concern is. Trash access. So I think that having an exterior door on the outside and then having a staging area kind of on Jordan Avenue, I think that could be a potential, could be something to look at. I think the Alton, that's what they do from my understanding. So I think that moving the trash bins across that parking area and the driveway entrance, I think it looks like it could be challenging just from looking at it. But again, I don't know if that's the intent. So I wasn't sure if maybe an option would be to have that exterior door with the staging area. As far as the design, I think it's very successful. I think when we looked at these objective design standards a few years ago, I think we were very focused on creating a building that had a very defined base, middle, and a top. And so I think that this building does a really successful job at that. So I appreciated that. I think there's a really unique element on the Jordan Avenue side where you basically have this kind of opening between the units that's open to the air. And so I really like that. My only gripe is that you don't have that same effect on the El Camino side, because you have kind of that roof top that goes across. And there's a little bit of an opening, but I just kind of wish that maybe that plane kind of stepped in or notched in a little bit. I think that would be really compelling to try that on that side. But yeah, that's really the only thing I would say as far as the design. And then I guess this is just a final thing as far as a lot of the waivers that were brought up, I think are good kind of stepping stones of what we should be looking at. Because I think with the objective design standards, we talked about wanting to kind of continuously look at these and update them in the future. So a lot of the things like the 40-foot rear setback for 30-foot tall buildings and 100-foot setbacks for 45 feet above. I mean, that's, to me, that's insane. I don't know how that got through. So I think we're going to just keep seeing waivers of that type of thing. And so I think this project is a good example of you know, they're asking for this waiver. And so maybe we need to change that particular thing so that we don't keep having waivers, because I think it's unreasonable. Some of these things are unreasonable that we have in our standards, I believe. And yeah, I think that was about it. So thanks.
All right.
Chair Bernardo, can I interrupt really quick?
Sure.
So Commissioner Ahi mentioned multiple of the essentially significant impediments to the creation of housing on El Camino Real in the CT district. We actually did amend those. So I want to clarify just so that the additional comments can be kind of oriented is so the applicant submitted an SB 330 pre-application, which vested them into the development standards at the time of application, so last summer. The CT district was changed in fall. So technically we have to review and apply the standards, even though they're less stringent now. So essentially there should be no concern with actually awarding concessions or waivers for things that are now essentially much more less restrictive.
Great. That's super helpful. Thank you. Any other comments or discussion?
Susan, if you've got something, go ahead.
You go ahead, Eric.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There's much that I like and some things I don't like about this. What we need in that area, we need two things to make it a civilized thing. We need a park and we need a decent bar. Yet one more. Or play in the bar, right? That goes back to the very first public comment I made in front of the Planning Commission back in 2018. But we do need those. We do need a park in North Los Altos in that area. And I'm not sure where we'd put it, but we do need it. And a decent bar is just one of those things that makes it a more civilized place. So there was an opportunity. It has been missed many times. It was missed yet once again. That's not a disappointment. I'm just being very clear about what my priorities are here.
Moving on.
I was very pleased that it was a mixed-use development. That's something that we've needed more. I have spoken up about that frequently. I wish all of the developments were mixed use. I have no problem with the design. I have no problem with the way it's laid out. Retail doesn't necessarily make much sense, so the office does. I think Maris's idea of flex parking is worth considering for that. I am concerned and I'm going to gripe for just a couple of minutes. There's nothing anybody can do about it. We can't change it. But when we have a BMR unit that's 1,000 square feet and we have a balcony that's over 700 square feet, there's a disproportion. And that it may not be avoidable. I don't want to get into arguments about what could have been done. It's just, it doesn't look that good. That said, we really don't have much choice in the present setting. And so I'm just going to express my dissatisfaction with the world in general. Again, if there had been a bar, maybe I would have taken a different view. But I'm going to express my dissatisfaction with the current regime. And this is not a criticism of the development or of the applicant, but just of the way the world is right now. And I'm very sorry that this has happened. My sympathy is with the people who objected, but unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. So, having expressed my dissatisfaction with everything in the world that matters, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I can go next.
Okay, get close to the mic.
I think one of I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Eric from the Alton brought up a really good point, which is as we do more and more infill along El Camino, we're going to have large buildings abutting each other, and it's going to cause problems with, light into units as well as sight lines from one building to another. We used to spend a lot of time on the Planning Commission way back when thinking about sight lines and how to obscure them. And it seems like we've gotten away from that. But I think we need to think about, long-term, as we do more and more infill, it's going to cause conflicts between these buildings because people are looking out, into the side yards. At this point, I don't know if there's really anything we can do. I think, the building is designed at the maximum density, and if to set back the side, to step it back in some way on the side and create kind of a wedding cake on the side would change all kinds of things with the rest of the building. So it's just something I think we need to think about, because this is, I don't know if we can do anything now, but I think long-term, we need to think about what happens when, you build two large buildings next to each other. Right, for the Alton, it was fine because you were next to a Taco Bell, but now there's a new building, and it just introduces all kinds of problems, even though that new building isn't that different than the building you're in. So it is something, it's, what happens is not in isolation, right? Things get built and they relate to the other things around them. So it's something we have to, I think about. I think it's a reasonable next generation project. I mean, it's quite large. As I said, I'm sorry to see the big oak trees go. I wish there were a way to save the ones that have canopy over the street. Since they are coming out, I would like to see a condition where we ask for at least one Category 1 tree out towards the corner, so we get, we get some of the canopy back over the street. I am concerned a little bit with the Jordan Avenue elevation, because there's a driveway that goes into the parking, and then I think immediately you drive in and you go down a ramp. Isn't that correct? Am I getting that right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's not going to be a great view to have a sight line into that ramp and that garage area. So I think it would be really beneficial to have some kind of screening there, and I think it could be done in the landscaping, just a trellis to the left of the driveway that would obscure the sight lines into the parking area. I think it would look better. And then finally, I am very concerned with the applicant being either proposing or being asked to provide street lights on Jordan. I think that there are no street lights on Jordan, and I think that the street lighting should be handled on the city side. I don't think the applicant should be installing pole lights along Jordan, because I think we need a more like citywide comprehensive plan with respect to street lighting, and I think we need something that is consistent with what is existing there. So if it were up to me, I would say, don't require the applicant to put in a bunch of pole lights on Jordan. I think that should be handled from the city, and I think what the city does should be in compliance with the spirit of the dark skies, and it should be it should be consistent with what is already there on Jordan.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Anybody over here?
Okay. I commend you on the design, architecture. When I first looked at it, I thought, this is really nice. So many times on the other buildings we've seen in the past, it's a big straight wall made out of Legos, putting it on the sidewalk, and you actually have, your architect, designers have done a really good job. I made the comment earlier about the 3-bedroom unit only having 1 bathroom. I think that's pretty tacky. What you grew up with and what I grew up with is not today. And you have a family that's buying an affordable unit would be nice. You could probably spend some extra, little bit of money and move things around, but there. All in all, I like it. I commend you on the size of the units, the 2-bedroom units. I grew up in a 2-bedroom house. I had a 3-bedroom house with parents and a couple of sisters, and we had 1 bathroom and a lot smaller. You got 1,600 square feet for 2 bedrooms. I lived in some houses that had 1,200 square feet, so good size. Location, I'm not delighted with. You've got every one of the 2 bedrooms, the BMRs. They're either adjacent to the health and fitness, next to trash, next to recycling, on the adjacent wall. Too bad it couldn't have been moved around. Yet all of the 2 bedrooms are very convenient. The elevator's right there. Elevators today are not noisy like they used to be. So, except the people getting out of it, if have been out with Eric at the local bar that he found, and a little noise in the hall on the hall at night. That's about it.
All right.
I too think it's a good project, and much as Kate was saying, I do think we need to pay attention to, as we infill, what happens, because to be honest, there is nothing we can do about that setback for you. We have no discretion whatsoever there, and that's unfortunate, but that is state law now. So I'm sorry, but we need to figure out if there's some way with the objective standards or something else, and I have no idea if there is, to try to fix that as we have more of these projects. My only disappointment, which has been expressed by other people, are the BMRs. I do think they're being treated as different from all the other units, and I understand the cost analysis there, but it really would be nice. I think a 3-bedroom with 1 bathroom makes no sense in today's world. And I also think anyone will look at those and say, those are the below market rate units. They're not up to the same standard as the other units. I don't think that's in the spirit of the BMR law. And so I am disappointed personally by that. I understand the trade-off you made, but I think something more could have been done.
All right, thank you. So I have just a few thoughts as well. I too like the project. Getting more housing in Los Altos, I think, is really important. And as the parent of a young adult who is in a BMR unit on the peninsula somewhere, this is a software engineer who is well trained and is, the requirements to get into a BMR are different than they used to be. And so many people qualify for BMRs. It's not just the poorest amongst us. It's lots of young working professionals. And when you get, 3 roommates in a BMR unit sharing 1 bathroom, especially if it's 3 guys, strange things can start to happen. So, so we can't compel you to do anything. And in the same way with the setbacks, 1 building went up first. I'm guessing it's 10 feet from the property line, perhaps, and another building goes up, 10 feet from the property line. Those are the rules. And so I'd encourage you to meet with the developer. The owner is right there, so you can chat with him. I'm sure he's a very reasonable man and would listen to your concerns. I don't think he can move his project necessarily, but maybe there are some things you can do where the balconies aren't looking right into each other and are offset a little bit, or something along those lines. I agree on the BMR front with regards to the sizes, but I also understand that, they may not be exactly the same as, the larger units. I hope the material choices and the selections will be similar, and, commend you on the solar, the, EV spaces, the electric for bikes. These are becoming requirements in this new world order. And so I think that aspect of the project was great, as well as, the amount of parking that you did put in, whether for residential or the commercial side. I think it was, given some of the state mandates about, how much parking is required or not required. I think there's a substantial amount there, and I know going down is very expensive. So commend you guys for that. So with that, if there aren't any other comments, I would entertain a motion. We have two separate items to consider, but would anyone like to kick us off?
Where do we have consensus, I guess? I've heard a lot of things. There's a lot of consensus around BMRs. I don't know what we can do, if we can require that a BMR not be, that one of the BMRs be swapped with one of the market rate.
We cannot require anything, as far as I'm concerned. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct, based on the Banker Hill case.
Yes, we can discuss it, with the owner and the developer, but we cannot compel tree sizes that are different from the objective standards, or sizes of units that are different from the objective standards. We're kind of stuck there. But it could be incorporated. Something could be incorporated into a motion if it's legal.
Okay, so can we just kind of go through some of what about, the objective standard says that they are to select trees from the city street tree list. And just so you know, I have no problem with what they're proposing, but the trident maple isn't on there. I don't know if any of us care that it's not on there. So I think there is some openness to, proposing or requesting a different tree. So one of the things I had said was, and the applicant seemed open to this, that we would require one Category 1 tree out kind of near the corner where there is more space, given the size of the building and given that there is no Category 1 that is being planted. So I'm just asking, are the other commissioners open to that?
Well, I don't know that we can require it. I think we can request it. So can I get some clarification from staff on that? Can we require a larger tree or a different tree? If it's not on the list of approved trees, that seems to make sense. But
well, I think that is actually on the list, where the trident maple probably isn't.
right. No, that's what I was referring to. There are two issues there. One is the oak that you mentioned. So what are the rules on that, Nick?
So it's not an explicit requirement to specifically plant those trees. So, you could request, however, we have not been doing that in common practice. So I wouldn't advise it.
And what about the tree that's not on the approved list of trees from the city? Which one was it, Kate?
Trident maple.
Trident maple?
But I don't think we should be taking it off. I think it's a fine tree. I'm just pointing out that we're being a little inconsistent with our objective standards.
Well, if it's not in the standards, we should probably. Do you guys let people substitute trees if they're of equal size or form?
Yes. So the city street planting list hasn't been changed really in the past 20 years. So that we believe that the professional landscape architect's selection for the tree species is suitable for the landscaping plan.
So perhaps later we should discuss if we need to update that list for future reference.
That can be a discussion item for the planning commissioners.
Okay.
And sorry, just to also be clear, these aren't street trees. These are private property trees. So they don't have to be chosen from the street tree list.
Okay. And that tree is on the private property tree list?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So on page 19, there's a condition, 80, street trees in public right-of-way. The applicant shall install new street trees along the frontage of Jordan Avenue. So it looks like those are considered street trees.
So the ones on the back side of the property that are currently shown in the planting plan,
No,
those,
I'm talking about the Jordan Avenue.
no, that's what I'm discussing as well. So those are still the private property trees, and should there be a separated sidewalk or other street trees in the public right-of-way, they would have to be chosen from the street tree list or recommended from our Parks Department if they differed from that.
So I want to just rephrase what I think you said. So their plan shows trident maples on the property line. Are you saying that the applicant is going to install additional trees in the public right-of-way along Jordan?
Depending on the street improvement plans, correct.
Well, that's interesting because that would be a lot of trees. Okay, all right. Okay, so just to be clear, the trident maple is not a street tree. It's,
Correct, it's private property planting.
okay.
But Ja also mentioned that they sometimes have substitutions based on the list being 20 years old, and they do allow that. So I don't know if there's other support for changing a tree, not this maple that we were talking about, but the other one. Is there any other support for that?
I have a comment to add to it,
Sure.
which is, again, speaking as an HOA president, trees change. Whatever the developer planted will not survive that long. Things will move around. Stuff is pulled out. Droughts come and go. Plantings change. So it doesn't make much sense to spend a lot of time arguing about what should be planted here, because that may well change over time as the HOA has to do things. So we should get as close as we can to that, but the details will change. So it is not graven in stone. So
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
That is true, that landscapes are dynamic, but if you have a condition to plant a tree and it dies, I think the city can go in and say, you had a condition of approval that required a tree and it died, we can make them replace it. So it does matter what the conditions do matter, because the tree may die, but the condition doesn't go away.
but the tree may change.
Well, that's true, but the
You know.
condition doesn't go away.
Well, no, of course.
So if you could somehow require a Category 1 and it died, you could require its replacement. So that's what's important, is the requirement.
Right. But with staff recommending against that, as well as no other support, I don't think we should spend more time there. Do you disagree?
No, if there's no support, that's fine.
Okay. So other things you wanted to discuss? I mean, there's not much we can do because of state law. So I'm not sure what other conditions you would want to try to impose. But
Well, the other thing I had said was screening on the parking structure, but I don't know if we can require that. That's not something we can require? Like a trellis of some kind that would obscure the sight lines into the garage from Jordan Avenue?
yeah, is that Jordan? I don't know. Can we compel screening? I don't know that that's possible. I think we can.
So fundamentally, this is where we've talked about. So this is the commission's first time in the last 2 years actually designing a project with the new objective design standards. I would say that this is actually one of the bullet points that the commission should be taking note of for future discussions, so we can amend them. The commission cannot design from the dais. And that's further what is why it's referenced as the Banker Hill 150 case.
Okay.
Okay, so that sounds like a no. So then, is there any feedback on not requiring sidewalk lights and letting the city deal with that? If it's, you know, do we really want applicants to be installing streetlights? I don't think so, and it wouldn't be consistent with what's on Jordan. And it wouldn't even be consistent with other new developments on El Camino. I drove down El Camino before I came here, and I didn't see any pole lights other than the ones that the cities erect. So I'm wondering why that's in here.
Maris, did you want to say something?
Well, I think the ones on Jordan, I think they're private streetlights from what it seems like. So I think that they're not city standard streetlights, but I mean, I think developers would love you for that comment that they don't have to do the streetlights. So,
Well, let's make them happy then.
so, but I mean, I don't know. I didn't really see. I think that they're going to have this new building. I think we need lighting on that, and I don't know if the city doesn't have a system for it. Then we're just going to be waiting. So I think that the project would need lighting. So.
Can I ask staff, are we requiring these streetlights or recommending them, or what is the state of the streetlights?
So we do require city standard lights of developments when it is necessary and determined by the city engineer. We apply that from Title 11 of the Municipal Code as well as the subdivision ordinance for the city. So it will be a part of the subdivision improvement agreement that the council authorizes. So I would actually also say is that the council will ultimately make the decision on the approval of the subdivision because that is their purview for the final action. So the planning commission can make a recommendation. However, we require street lights to be installed by private developers all of the time. And I think Commissioner Ahi is, that's what I was thinking is any developer is going to love that because that's multi-thousands of dollars of savings that they don't have to do to install. However, then that's a cost burden to the jurisdiction to have to install in the future.
And I believe the lights are just on the Jordan side, not on the El Camino side. Is that accurate?
Is there a city standard in the front?
Right.
Oh, like a municipal street light or something?
I think there's one on there.
I just didn't see it on the plans. So you suggested to the developer that they put in the lights for safety reasons or some other reasons?
So the city engineer will require it as a part of the subdivision improvement agreement. There
Okay.
is an existing city standard light pole that is outdated that would be replaced as a part of the subdivision for this project.
Okay.
I have a question. Could the applicant, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I during the discussion, we don't usually bring the applicant back in, but what were you going to say?
Well, I think sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the condition 78 on page 19 means the city engineer works with the applicant and decides if there needs to be sidewalk lights in the Jordan Avenue sidewalk, which is not on the property, but the city engineer decides if that's needed and can require that the applicant do that.
Yes, that's correct.
And so there might be some, you know, you might work it out with the city engineer. We don't know. So just to be clear, so what is going to be installed may or may not be what we see in the lighting plan.
So the commission doesn't have any specific project details. I'm reading this directly from 1120.040 general requirements of street improvements. This was something that the council more recently adopted, which explicitly outlines what is also consistent with our subdivision requirements, which is that the city engineer, the permittee shall install such improvements that the city engineer deems necessary in accordance with the general purpose and intent of the chapter. The improvements may include the following: curb, gutter, driveway, sidewalks, ADA ramps, bicycle lanes, bike racks, pedestrian crossings, overlay, pavement structural sections, pavement striping, street lights, storm and sewer drains, stormwater treatment measures, sanitary sewers, so on and so forth. There's multiple other provisions. So those are the typical requirements of when someone does a subdivision in California that would be required as a part of a city standard in subdivision improvement agreement.
Nick, is it appropriate to hear from the applicant at this point?
If Mr. Vidovich has something specific to add to it,
Please.
John, go ahead.
The street lights on El Camino, they're tall.
Right.
And so we want light, but we want the light low. So you get big, tall light, it's going to come right in my second floor, and it's going to be not healthy for those people. So the lights will be lower, and it's much, much better.
Okay.
And the one thing she said about, that entry, and somebody said something about, it needs to be less than 3 feet. That entry, you have to make it so you can see both ways, because that's even on the gardens right now, that's getting a little tall. And
The driveway entry.
yeah.
Yes.
That has to
Yeah.
be open.
Thank you. All right. So I personally would defer to the city engineer on a safety issue like this, but if there is other support, we can consider.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I think that the lighting, the engineer will determine basically how much lighting, how many lights are needed based on like a photometric study, and then that will determine how many lights, how far apart they're spaced, like that sort of thing. So, and I misspoke. I said private light, but I meant shorter than a standard, kind of 40-foot tall. So that's what will be on Jordan, slightly shorter. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I just want to say is this project is going to have to comply with the new lighting ordinance that's actually on our agenda within 5 years. Something to think about.
Even though they're locked into the
Well,
old
read the
standards.
ordinance. They have to comply within 5 years, existing lighting. So maybe we just let it run.
If they're within a certain distance of an open space,
No,
I
you're,
believe.
you're talking about the bird thing. I'm talking about the lighting.
Okay. Is that accurate? They're going to have to retrofit or something?
There's an amortization requirement for any future improvements. However, the specific lighting fixtures that have been proposed are not final. The applicant in the building permit phase can provide specific different options. However, we're not at that phase yet, so we will inform Mr. Vidovich as well as his architect of the potential forthcoming changes with some of the lighting efficiency requirements, and they can elect to adhere to them sooner rather than later and not have to have the extra cost burden in the future.
Okay, great. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. I will entertain a motion on the first issue.
Which I think is design review.
Yes, I don't have it here in front of me, but somebody probably.
I'll give it a try. I move that we adopt the design review as stated in the report, and approve the project as it has been described in the presentation here.
I'll second.
Should the
right.
motion be like resolution, the resolution subject to the conditions in Exhibit A and B?
I think
I
it's.
think that's incorporated in what I said.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Disney,
Aye.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle.
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roach,
Yes.
and Chair Benato.
Yes.
That's a unanimous recommendation.
All right, that is on the first resolution, and there's a second resolution around the vesting tentative map, which would go to the city council. So is there a motion on that one?
I'll give it a try again since I did the other one.
Mike, please.
I hadn't turned it off, sorry. And I move that we recommend the tentative map to the council for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, could we have the vote, please?
Commissioner Disney,
Aye.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roach,
Yes.
and Chair Benato.
Yes.
That's a unanimous approval.
All right. Well, the project is approved. Really want to thank you for your diligence on this. And, as chair, I'd ask if there are neighbors or others who want to chat. You seem very open to discussing some of those things. So we obviously can't compel them, but it'd be great if you could look into some of the issues that were raised. That would be great. Thank you so much. All right. We're making good progress. We're going to move on to public hearing number 2. This is item 4 on the agenda. It's a project at 1485 Fremont Avenue, and we're going to follow the same procedure we just did. I think there might be a staff report with Brittany. Is that right?
Commissioners, I want to make sure the PowerPoint is being shown. Okay, great, excellent, thank you. Yeah, my name is Brittany Whitehill, and I'm the planner for this item for your consideration this evening. It is a tentative parcel map to subdivide a single-family lot into 2 lots and a conditional use permit to allow a flag lot configuration at 1485 Fremont Avenue. The approximately 64,000 square foot property is located on the corner of Fremont Avenue and Cathy Lane. The property has a single-family home and a detached accessory structure that contains a garage and workshop at the ground floor level and a second-story accessory dwelling unit. The property is listed on the City of Los Altos Register of Historic Resources. The project involves relocation of the existing accessory structure, highlighted in orange on the screen, to a new location on the property to allow for the property to be subdivided. On October 28th, the Historical Commission considered a historical advisory review and design review to relocate the accessory structure and construct minor site modifications. These permits were approved by the Development Services Director on October 29th. The project requests a tentative parcel map to subdivide the lot into 2 lots, creating an approximately 42,000 square foot lot at the corner of Fremont Avenue and Cathy Lane, shown as Lot 1 on the slide, and an approximately 22,000 square foot flag lot, which will be accessed from Cathy Lane, and that's shown as Lot 2. Tentative parcel maps require recommendation from the Planning Commission and final decision of the City Council. The tentative parcel map will be reviewed by the City Council at a future meeting. The project requires a conditional use permit pursuant to the Los Altos Municipal Code to allow the creation of the flag lot, and the conditional use permit requires approval by the Planning Commission. Staff finds that the project and subdivision as designed comply with all applicable provisions of the Los Altos Municipal Code, General Plan, and Subdivision Map Act. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving the requested conditional use permit and recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the tentative parcel map. The formal recommendation language is shown on the screen, and I'm available for any questions. And the project applicant team is also here if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Does the applicant have any comments or concerns or anything else? Please. I believe they get 10 minutes. Is that correct? All right.
Hi. You're telling everyone to get too close. I got too close. or get closer. My name is Jackie Terrell. I'm with Young and Borlick Architects, and I'm representing the Fusilla sisters back here. Those are my clients. This project we've been working on for a long time. We are hoping to subdivide the lot to allow these three sisters to essentially create their own age-in-place situation, and I would like them to speak to that in just a bit. By subdividing this lot, we would be increasing the density, which the state is hoping that we accomplish, but we're doing it with ample space, especially for Lot 1, which is the historic, which would mean the historic lot. We're also trying to preserve the structures and the hierarchy of Lot 1, which is what we basically went through in our historic review and hiring Page and Turnbull for doing our report. With this, we are also trying to preserve all of the trees on the properties. So anything that we could preserve, we're doing that on both lots. As well as, this, by subdividing this, as you've just listened to, this meets all the city standards. So I'm here for questions, but also I would like to open this up to one of the sisters to speak really
Please.
quickly.
Hi, I'm Audrey Fusilla Carlson, and I have two of my five sisters are here. We moved to California in 1962 when El Camino Hospital was opened, and my dad started as a radiologist there, and he practiced his whole career there. In 1963, my parents bought at probate. They used like their last dime to win the house versus a developer who was bidding for it. So the first five of us were already born and moved in, but Molly, our youngest sister, was born at El Camino, right? El Camino, and has lived her whole life there. So we would like to do what my neighbor has called assisted living. Our sister Beth is in that parcel 3, which is the existing lot, and so there are 3 of us who would like to build something on the flag lot, the tentative flag lot, so that we'll be able to age in place together. And in order to do that, we are selling the family house, which doesn't meet the needs for aging sisters. So we've been thinking about it a lot. We have, a lot of heartfelt ties to the property and to Los Altos. We went to what was then Awalt High School. I just went to my 50th reunion there this summer. So that's the background and what we're trying to do with it. Thank you.
Great. I just had a question before you go. So you're selling the property, the house at Lot 1, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the garage structure that's on what would be Lot 2 is being moved to Lot 1?
Yes.
And then something new being built on Lot 2?
Exactly.
And
it was really the only spot, between the arborists, we had 40-something trees we were trying to work with. And also the historic portion of it, the main house is the important part, so you have to subordinate the other structure. So that was, in fact, the only place that between planning and the arborist and the historians, that's where it could go.
And the existing parcel 3 is a newer home that's right there that I drove by and looked at today. So I was trying to figure out if that was just a random neighbor or some other portion of this property. So.
No. So we want to share that back gate.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you. I think we'll bring it back for questions from the commissioners. So any questions for staff or the applicant from anybody? Good over here.
I have a question. So the lot, both the house and the garage are considered a historic resource. Is that true? Both of them are?
That's correct.
And then did the historical commission look at the plan to move it? And
That's correct.
Okay, and so this is probably kind of a dumb question, but you can move something that big?
You can move whole houses.
Like,
Large
are they gonna,
houses.
I'm just curious, are they gonna take it apart and move it? Or does this whole thing get moved as one thing?
It's going to be moved as one thing, so they're going to have to shore it up, and we have to create a whole plan and submit
Yeah.
that to the building department on how we are going to relocate it very carefully. But it's not going very far.
Right, yeah.
Some go miles. We're literally shifting it on the same lot, and there's nothing in its way. So
Right, okay.
It's quite a sight when you see a house going down the street on a
Yeah, but
truck.
this is like a big stucco house, like the garage is big, and it's impressive that you can even move it at all, so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we good on Eric? You got your finger on the trigger. I was wondering what was going on over there.
I'll wait for comments.
All right. So why don't we, with no further commissioner comments, why don't we open up to the public for public comment? I think we had a card from Ethan. I can't read the rest of this.
I'm a doctor. You'll never be able to read.
Oh, okay. What did you prescribe for me? This is excellent.
I'll tell you,
Would you like to speak? Okay, three minutes, please.
sat through way too many lectures in my lifetime, but I have to just commend the commissioners for sitting through things like this. It's mind-blowing, your patience and attention to
Oh,
detail.
you've never attended a city council meeting, apparently.
I did once when my daughter was being honored, again, Mountain View High School student. But, so I don't know if you can throw the graphic up to show exactly. This, first of all, the house that faces Fremont is truly an architectural wonder. And I know the gentleman. We went to the same high school in Evanston, and I've chatted him up a few times. A very gracious gentleman, a good physician from what my colleagues tell me. But the house lot crosses against, I think, about 8 different houses. And they're all single-family dwellings. And the question is, I'm concerned that the houses that will be built on the second lot are going to overlook my house and my neighbor's houses, and they're going to be very close to the lot line, which, again, in our neighborhood just doesn't exist. So that's why I'd like you to tell me, one story, 2 stories, there's the privacy issue, and how close to the existing houses. Again, a lot of us moved here, 34, I'm sorry, only 30, let's see, my daughter's 32. We moved here 29 years ago, supported the community. But I do worry that it's going to change the whole character of, first of all, my property value. Second of all, just the privacy that myself, my children, and now my grandchildren will be next month. So can you give me some insight into how it's going to affect the 8 or 9 houses that surround this property?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, in public comment, we cannot respond to the commentary. But you can ask the architect and the family right behind there all the questions you want. But we're not allowed to
podium around.
No. We receive comments, and so I think you've expressed a concern about the project. But right now there is no housing project in front of us. We're merely considering the lot split. So when the time came for them to build a house, that would come before either the administrator or planning commission, depending on what exactly is described there. Most likely, it would go directly to Nick. And Nick is always happy to meet with members of the public as well.
So do I just set up a meeting, or
yeah,
do I
absolutely.
have my people call his people?
Absolutely. I would start with your neighbors and the architect, and then there is no project in front of us. All we're considering is lot split. But at that point, when the house is coming forward, then you could certainly talk with a staff who'd be working on the house.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
One comment, the gentlewoman that wanted, the whole concept of natural light, I'm sure you know more about this than me, but there's true health benefits to it. It's probably
Absolutely.
a lot better than a lot of the medications that are prescribed. And her concern of, this house is going to block our natural light. But I don't know how she's going to go about doing that. Same thing with me. I don't know, is it going to concern the
Right.
quality of mine and my family's life and the families that abut the property.
Understood.
But this is the wrong place to do this, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
This is the only option I had that came in the mail.
Yes. No. And we do take the comments into consideration during our deliberations. So thank you.
Thank you again. Just incredible, you guys' fortitude.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comment cards, or we're good? All right, so we will close the public hearing and move on to the discussion amongst the commissioners. So would anybody like to start? Eric, please.
I think this is the world's fanciest farmhouse. Since it started out, from what I understand, as an orchard, and this was the orchard owner's home, right? And then in the back was the garage with the chauffeur's apartment, right? Because it was the 20s and not everybody drove. If you could afford a house like that, you could afford a car with a driver. And now you just call them ADUs, right? So I'm fully in favor of this. I don't know that there's much to discuss. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, why don't we see if there are any other discussion items from this side of the dais is clear, but I don't know about Maris or Kate.
Just one.
Oh, sure.
It's really, I'm in favor of the project. I hope it works out well for you. I would say, please try to work with your neighbors. That would be my only comment.
Yes, no comments. I just wish you could subdivide it into even more lots. That would be great, but yeah.
This is like the old days, right? Where we would wring our hands over subdividing a lot this large. So this is great, and I think it's a great project. And I just want to say, I'm not sure that you're going to be noticed on a single-family project. So it would make sense to reach out to staff sooner rather than later, or better yet, the property owners. But I support the project.
All right. And as a child of 6 siblings, I understand what you grew up with pretty well. So I do support the project. I didn't want to go onto the property since that's probably not appropriate, but I did look at the main house today. It is beautiful, and the architectural detail is just exquisite. So glad that will be maintained, and I couldn't quite see the accessory building in the back, but I assume it's got similar characteristics. So with that, any other comments, or are we good? Let me see. Do we? I think we have 2 resolutions here as well. So would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I'll give it a try again.
All right. Turn on your mic.
I'm going to move that we approve the conditional use permit to allow the creation of the flag lot. I think that's the first step, and then the other one will go after. That seems the logical order, right? Okay. All right, so I'm moving that we approve the conditional use permit to permit the flag lot.
I second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Disney. And can we have a vote?
Commissioner Disney,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roach,
Yes.
Chair Benenato.
Yes.
It's unanimous approval.
Okay.
All right, first resolution passes. How about the second one? Can I have a motion?
Well, I'll finish off. I move that we recommend the tentative map to the council for approval.
Okay, second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Disney. Could we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Disney,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roach,
Yes.
and Chair Benenato.
Yes.
Unanimous recommendation.
All right, congratulations. Thank you for doing that, and good luck with your project. And we would, I think the commission, we love it when neighbors actually talk to each other. And I got to meet a neighbor across the creek only because a huge oak tree fell into our yard from their yard. So, I know there are a number of houses along that, I forget the name of the street, and it might be helpful just to let them know what you're thinking. They're probably worried that you're going to put up a 6-story, apartment complex or something. And, the reality might be easier than the dreams or the fantasies of what might happen there. So please do talk to them if you could. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. Are we are we okay? Do we need a break, or are you guys good to continue? All right, let's do it. So we are going to move on to item 5. These are the zone text amendments for bird safe design and lighting performance standards. Is there a staff report? I'm sorry, we're just moving so fast for you guys tonight. I hope you can keep up.
All right, so this evening we're going to go over bird safe design and lighting performance standards. So to cover what we're considering tonight is to consider the draft ordinance and provide a recommendation to the City Council for the adoption of integration of Chapter 1490 and 1491, and then find this project exempt from CEQA. With that being said, to give the commission a brief overview of what has occurred prior to this evening, is in late 2023, the City Council directed the Environmental Commission to explore a potential dark skies ordinance and potentially including bird safety for the city of Los Altos. In spring of this year, the Environmental Commission elected to proceed with the outreach and the development of a dark skies ordinance and a bird safe design ordinance modeled after the adopted regulations in the city of Cupertino. On October 9th of this year, so just over a month ago, the Environmental Commission approved the draft ordinances to be forwarded through the process for adoption. With that, some of the basic characteristics of bird safe design is the applicability standards, which would apply to the multifamily residential and commercial buildings. In general, would avoid high reflectivity or transparent glass on the facade. And avoid funneling of flight paths along buildings and avoid planting of trees close to the facades themselves. Additionally, there would be no more than 10% of untreated glass for anything that's 60 feet in height, and anything above it would only be 5 feet of untreated glass. Glazing treatments, or quote unquote the treatment that is previously referenced, would be creating some type of opaque glass or having some type of essentially the rivets or some type of a design that's on the glass to help provide some differentiating for the wildlife. Performance standard or lighting performance standards. So this is actually what's come out of the dark sky ordinance. There's fundamentally just some differences. The Environmental Commission did recommend that we don't need to essentially go for the full essentially certification of a dark skies community. However, there's principles and requirements that we can integrate and still achieve very similar essentially outcomes. This would apply essentially universally throughout the city with various different regulations as outlined in the draft resolution, but effectively it prohibits blinking and flashing lights. It has a certain Kelvin rating, or the warmness of the light, so that it's not the super bright, cool Kelvin rating, rather the higher, and that is more of the yellow kind of hue or tint. There is a compliance period, so for new build development, it would be immediate. So upon application, this would be applied as a part of it. And then for existing structures, which was kind of discussed with the last item, is that there would be essentially an amortization schedule of 10 years or 5 years, depending on residential or commercial. And then fundamentally, it would be required for all street lighting as well as all lighting in general throughout the city to have shielding, as well as having essentially what is considered a night light curfew, meaning that all lights have to be extinguished by 11 p.m. With some exceptions that are built into the code. So with that, is previously displayed is that tonight we're considering the recommendation to the City Council of integration of bird safe design and lighting performance standards within the Los Altos Municipal Code.
All right. Thank you, sir. We will move on to questions from commissioners of staff. I'll look this way first.
Just a couple. You mentioned that this was being modeled after Cupertino. Are these fairly standard provisions that you would find in many municipal codes?
For lighting, yes, in general, not maybe explicit on like the Kelvin rating. Some folks don't adhere to that just for the other kind of energy efficiency requirements or, what they've previously done. The bird safe design, I will say there's very few jurisdictions that have that provision in the Bay Area specifically, but as well as throughout California. I will say is one of the reasons why there's a big difference for the lighting standards is that originally, like I said, it was a dark skies kind of emphasis. There's very few jurisdictions in California that actually have the full dark sky kind of provisions. And those are more so kind of edge city type jurisdictions, or if they're immediately adjacent to a body of water. So we kind of have the majority of all the main components with kind of some of those few characteristics that aren't necessary for a jurisdiction for the lighting provisions.
And are these provisions things that can easily be obtained, or are they costly to achieve and being a burden to people?
I would say the prescriptive compliance, I do have some concerns about, because I do think that a 5-year and a 10-year window is fairly quick turnaround for some of these investments. Fundamentally, the bird safe design, I think also has some implications, unfortunately, but this is the recommendation of the Environmental Commission.
Okay, lastly, can you tell me what avoid funneling flight paths along buildings means?
Essentially. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
There is, in the requirements for building features for the bird safety, there's a line saying, avoid funneling flight paths along buildings. What does that mean?
So they're kind of in our first project is that if you kind of create almost like a building alleyway, is that you're kind of creating essentially the artificial funneling of the wildlife. And so it would be to essentially create enough spatial distance that you're not kind of creating it to be essentially ending into like a dead stop on like the actual private property. Obviously, we're not going to be able to require that universally, especially with things like density bonus.
Right.
But it's something to try and attempt to achieve, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
First of all, I thought most birds bedded down at night and weren't flying, but that's a whole other issue, I guess. When's this proposed ordinance? Thank you for smiling, Nick. When does this proposed ordinance take effect? And the question is directed at, we have small commercial property owners that might have outside lights, in the parking lot, adjacent to the building, in the rear by the garbage dumps. When is this going to all take effect?
So it would take effect 30 days after the adoption by City Council.
So immediately you're going to have some small businesses that are going to be impacted.
So if they're making new improvements, yes. If there's existing improvements, there is the 5 and the 10-year rule essentially for essentially implementation of modification of existing improvements. So it does depend on of when we actually adopt it.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody on this side with questions?
I just had a clarifying question. So when it says ground to 60, under the bird safety ordinance, when it says ground to 60 feet, no more than 10% untreated. So 90% of the glass on every facade has to have opaque glass or insect screen. Like, is that how I'm reading it?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
I have a question about the bird safe design. This would only apply to a building that is within 300 feet of open space.
That's correct.
So I'm just kind of curious, like, where is our open space?
So anything that's considered a park is also considered open space. Mr. Wing lives very close to a lot of our open space in the city. And then we actually have a lot of open space that's in what's considered the sphere of influence, which is essentially the next likely area that would be annexed into the city from the county. And so it's not an abundance by any means. That's also why I would say is the bird safe design is not necessarily universally applicable to all jurisdictions, because we don't have the migratory birds that actually Cupertino does, which actually, if you were to look on a map of how the standards actually apply, is they essentially come down from the mountains, essentially from Lehigh, and go straight down the middle of the city, and within then essentially like 300 feet of that middle kind of corridor for the wildlife. So it's not universally applicable all across town. So if we had essentially unobstructed, like bigger portions of like the creeks and untouched and preserved areas that kind of funnel into the bay, we would have more, but we don't have that big kind of chunks. So it's really more so our public parks, and then some of the areas that back up to the open space areas adjacent to the city.
Okay, and schools don't count?
No, they do not.
Okay. Are we talking about the lighting standards too at the same time?
Yeah, everything.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out something, because I did meet with Nick earlier, and I hope I can point this out, that
Do you want to hold this for discussion, or is it a question?
I just want to make sure it's correct, that under 1491040 general standards, 1A2 seasonal lighting during the period specified in this chapter, that is gone. Isn't that's what you told me today?
Yeah, so for clarification purposes, staff would be amending this because that was a recommendation of the Environmental Commission. There was an additional section that regulated the seasonal lighting, specifically like Christmas lights was the intent. However, there was a robust discussion about other essentially seasonal or religiously affiliated lighting celebrations that do not have, date specific, like Diwali being one of them, and others. So it's not something that the commission recommended us explicitly regulating, as it's not a significant issue as of today.
But we're not if we were, do we have to condition that it come out, or is it not?
This was an administrative error, so I would delete this upon advancing.
What is the section? Could someone?
It's 14.91.040, so the general standards section.
Yes.
It's the first main, so A, shielding, and then 1, little a, and then number 2, so the last line of that is seasonal lighting during the period specified. The specified period later in the chapter was already removed based on the recommendation from the Environmental Commission.
So remove little II, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything about seasonal lighting is removed. Okay. Anything else?
No questions.
Eric, any questions?
No.
All right. We will move on to public comments. I don't have any cards on this one. Any public comment? Okay. Perfect. We will close the public hearing and move on to discussion. Who'd like to kick us off?
I can go.
please.
I don't really have many comments on the lighting ordinance. On the bird safety ordinance, I think the facade section, no more than 10% untreated glass, I think that's going to fundamentally change the elevation of buildings. So as an architect, I don't like that at all. I think that adding anything to the exterior, I think we should just leave it as is. The things that I've seen is when we have balconies that have glass on the balcony, then we'll suggest to not have it be glass because of the bird safety. I've heard it mentioned about the bird safety. I've also heard if we have floor to ceiling glass. There was a project on First Street that had floor to ceiling, and we were worried about that. So I think that if you have a certain size, like a certain height of glass, then I could see us maybe having this provision, but to just blanket it in terms of 90%, I think that has to go. I think that's crazy. So
Can you comment on the cost as a architect and builder? What is the incremental cost to get these special windows that have these? Some of them are applied afterwards, but some are coatings that are built in.
I mean, I guess my concern is more the look, but yeah, the cost I think is a big issue as well. And I don't think we have this problem where birds are flying into all our windows, all our facades. So I don't think it's this huge issue that requires 90% of the glass.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where Maris in here is that? Because isn't this what we're approving? I mean, this is the chapter. So where, I know you're looking at the table, but I'm wondering where in here is it?
I don't know. I'm going off of the table.
You're looking at Appendix A, I believe.
So is the table going in the code, or is the chapter going in?
Everything.
So it's what's identified as appendix. What's in the staff report is not. No.
So the table's not going in?
No.
So we have to find it in here.
Kate, I think it's on page 172, isn't that it?
Okay, so
172.
14.9.050. I think that's what incorporates.
172. 070 or
050.
050.
Bottom of page 172.
My 172 doesn't have that, but
Sorry, that was
Oh, here it is. Yeah, 171.
So what should it, in your opinion, be?
I would say I think all glass railing, I think probably should have some type of treatment. I could see that being something that's something that we've suggested in the past. I think that if you have a glass that's a certain size, then I could see us implementing that. But I think that it's
glass railings as in balconies,
like
the facade.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we've seen that before. I think I call it the cruise ship effect. That
Right.
you have the all glass on the front. So. But I don't think we see a lot of projects like that. So I could see that. But I know specifically there was a project on First Street that had floor to ceiling all the way up, and I think we were worried about lighting and we were worried about bird safety. I remember someone brought it up at the meeting.
Yep.
So I could see that. I could kind of see that if someone wants to do an 8-foot tall glass, but I do not think this is a good idea.
All right. Anything else down this way, Eric?
I'll follow up on what Maris was saying. I grew up in a house, the entire back of which was glass, floor to ceiling. And one of my memories from childhood is birds flying and going thump into the glass. There was also pyracantha there, which is sort of like birdie tequila, and that didn't help when they were trying to navigate this. But those were literally, the whole back of the house was glass.
So the birds were drunk, is what you're saying.
Birds were drunk and they flew into the glass.
That's a theme tonight for you. Is
Yeah, my blood alcohol content is too low. Anyway, so I think what Maris's point about the full length glass is well taken, and I don't think anything less than that we really need to worry about it. And if I remember correctly from when this happened, it was mostly in the upper reaches of the glass that the birds tended to hit. They didn't, and windows that weren't that big didn't attract the birds. So I don't think that we need to be too worried about this, I guess, is the way I would put it. I support what Maris has been suggesting, which is that this is a bit of overreach, perhaps.
Right.
And in certain circumstances, it makes sense, but those are limited circumstances.
Yeah, and I also grew up in a glass house, but we didn't have that problem very much. And I think part of it was there were big overhangs
Yeah.
to keep the sun out, and so that was enough. So I think it's really very site-specific and building-specific whether or not you need something, even with big windows.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I had a few thoughts. I agree on the lighting that, we need to make sure we have the right ordinance around keeping things as dark as possible. The bird stuff, I almost feel like we should not approve it. I live in a house with many windows. I've never counted it, and we did have a problem with a bird that was attacking one window regularly, and we put up some of those appliques, and they did nothing. The bird kept tapping on it all the time. I think might have been like a robin or something that was attacking itself because it thought it was a predator. So I don't. I think if you think about the cost perspective of this, the treatments, if you build a backyard with floor to ceiling glass, you want to look out at the trees, and instead you have frosted or stripes or dots or other things. It feels like you've lost your view, and so my perspective is that we approve the lighting and don't approve the bird safe aspects, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise if everybody feels this is a really important thing. Seems like more of a nuisance for the people building these things. Any thoughts on that?
I didn't know we had a problem. I guess that's
With birds?
kind of the issue. Like, I'm like, okay, so we're solving a problem I didn't know we had.
I don't think we do have
so
a problem.
When you try to do that, it's hard to know if this is any good because we're not really familiar with the problem. So I think it would be really more helpful to know how much of a problem is this in the city of Los Altos?
Or, if I might add, if you could explain where this came from, why we're even considering a bird safe design ordinance from Cupertino.
So, as I mentioned in the presentation, the council directed that the Environmental Commission look at a dark sky ordinance. Cupertino had just recently adopted a dark sky ordinance in addition to a bird safe design ordinance at the same time. They kind of commingled the two together through the process. There was specifically in that jurisdiction an advocacy group that really helped push and drive that. They're even referenced in the actual adopted ordinance, which I've never seen in my career. So I professionally, I do not think that we actually have a problem, as we've never encountered that in my 2.5 years as an ongoing persistent issue. I think that's also to be said is that we do not have an overabundance of open space area and like nature preserve area because we don't back up to the hillside of the Santa Cruz Mountains essentially. I would say it would be very different in like Los Altos Hills or on the other side of the 880 essentially. So it's did I just say 880? Wow, that's a totally different area that I used to live in. 280. It honestly, it does feel a little bit like a regulation for a problem that we don't know that we have.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask Nick one question? Are you comfortable, or would you rather see on the lighting part the compliance period to be changed? Are you happy with the 10 years and 5 years?
So the 10 years and the 5 years, it's going to be challenging for older buildings, especially those that are going to have to retrofit because I mean, especially like our downtown area, I would be concerned about, because some of those buildings with some of the soffit type fixtures they're built in to the facade. They're not just applique to the front of the building. So the compliance is going to be, I think, tough for some folks, inevitably.
What do you think would be a more reasonable period in those situations?
I don't know in regards to like a year time stamp. That's usually why in best practice, what we see with newer ordinances like this is that it's you don't penalize the existing, but you
Okay.
do it upon essentially like an improvement, trigger, rather than just saying, it exists today and we're amortizing it for the entire city.
Do you know if that was considered by the Environmental Commission? Because that's what I would have thought this would have said. But
I don't believe it was, because the 5 and 10 year requirement is something that at least 1 or 2 other jurisdictions included in their ordinance.
thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that.
Go ahead.
They can, like, if someone doesn't comply within the period of time, they can extinguish the lights. Right? You can say, I'm gonna turn my lights off. So if so you don't have to change out the lights.
But Kate, you might be the situation that it makes an unsafe building or a walkway is unsafe then. I mean, I understand the dark skies, but I also want sidewalks to be well lit and I want buildings to be well lit. It's a safety issue for me. There are a lot, I mean, I don't know if you walk, if you're an older person and you're walking downtown, there are a lot of uneven sidewalks, there's a lot of uneven surfaces, and you need this well lit or you're gonna have accidents.
Yeah, and I think, well taken, but I'm just making the point that one could just extinguish their lights and then just install the minimum. So it's not like they have to take out anything. Was my reading of it.
And I'll just add, I recently looked into retrofitting a bunch of existing outdoor lights, and very cost effective. They're almost plug-in compatible in many cases. So 5 years doesn't seem super unreasonable I'm having trouble distinguishing. Is it non-residential is 5 years and residential is 10 years? So we have 10 years to clean this up for the houses and 5 years for non-residential. But if the majority wants to change the timing, we could talk about doing that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would vote that it's only upon retrofitting, but if nobody else feels that way, then.
Well, I think that's a pretty good idea. I don't see any reason to rush. And I'm with Susan. I like lights. I think that I'm very ambivalent about the dark sky thing in the first place. But leaving that aside, I don't think that this is the kind of mandate that makes a lot of sense in this way. And doing it upon retrofit, yes. A program, or we have we basically we grant variances every single time somebody comes. I mean, it's one or the other. And I really don't like the idea of saying, well, accept the variance and you come in and say we want it and you get the variance. I don't want that. So I'd rather either make it upon retrofit or a longer period, 10, 12 years, something like that, so that it's more likely to fit in with something else that's happening. So
This reminds me a little bit of the natural gas ban, and instead of providing carrots, they were providing sticks, and I think some of the discussion recently has been to provide more carrots. Like, we'll give you a rebate if you take some natural gas appliance out. Maybe we could do an incentive program of some sort that would, incent people to put in more energy efficient lights. But I think from an environmental perspective, we do want to encourage people to get to the more modern LEDs, hopefully with the right. I'll warn you, we made a mistake and had some very high Kelvin fixtures that are horrible. Like, it's just like being in a basketball gymnasium. Like these, exactly.
Yeah,
but the LEDs may be really bright.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, those are.
That's what we're facing when we did some outdoor lights.
Please.
I just wanted to comment, I agree on the retrofitting and new construction. We're creating a reason to have this ordinance, and it's just ridiculous. We don't need that.
For the lighting.
Correct.
Okay, so we have, there's 6 of us. where are you guys on,
Yeah, I would support upon retrofit and new builds for the lighting.
that's 4. So I'm in the minority, I guess, but,
I have to say, I love this. I think this is the right direction. We want, to me, lighting is like smoking. You know, people want their lights and it intrudes and you can't mitigate lighting. If your neighbor wants lights, how do you mitigate that? There's really no way to mitigate it. So to say, okay, you want your lights, they have to be shielded. You have to contain them within your property. I think that's very reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable to allow someone to install lighting that intrudes into their neighbor's yard. I mean, I don't have air conditioning. I don't want air conditioning. I want to open my windows in the summer, and to do that, I've got to open my drapes, and then all that light, all that light that my neighbors want is spilling in, and I can't sleep. So, I mean, that's a personal story. We've shared a lot of personal stories tonight. So I feel like, you know, if you want your light, keep it on your side. And I think that's what this does. This isn't saying you can't have lights. It's saying that lighting has to be directional, it has to be shielded, you have to keep it on your side. And, you know, unless it's for, you know, very specific purposes that are highly functional, they have to be extinguished by 11 p.m. I think that's reasonable. We're not saying you can't have a porch light. We're not saying you can't have a sidewalk light. We're not saying you can't have, you know, lighting that's on a motion sensor that turns on when someone arrives at home. What this is really doing is it's saying unnecessary lighting is not appropriate because it infringes on, you know, the quality of life and the livability for other people. So I think this is a great step in the right direction, and I don't think it's that onerous to ask people to do this within 5 to 10 years, because what we're asking them to do is almost nothing. It's like, if you got a bunch of lights, turn it off. That's all we're asking them to do. And if they need to, you know, add a porch light, what is that, $100 at Home Depot? I don't think this is, we're asking them to not do lighting. So how is that onerous? I guess that's.
Kate, would you distinguish between commercial and residential?
Can I distinguish? Well,
I mean, for example, if I'm walking downtown, I want to have streetlights and I want to have buildings to have lights.
But this doesn't, all this says is, this doesn't, street lights.
Not necessarily, I shouldn't have said streetlights. I want there to be lights if I'm in an alleyway, if I'm walking to the parking plazas. That needs to be well lit.
And I think the planning, I mean, the city engineer would probably handle that and say, okay, public spaces, sidewalks, underground parking garages, street lights, that's not going away.
Yeah. Can I ask a question then of staff? When we say compliance period is 10 years for residential, does that mean they can only, after 10 years, you can say to your neighbor, hey, I don't like your lights. I want you to change them to this, the yellow light or this or that. Can they literally just turn off their lights, or do they have to replace them because they don't meet the requirements?
I mean,
as currently drafted.
They could, in theory, yeah, just distinguish them, and then we wouldn't. I mean, we didn't have something to enforce if the fixture is not being utilized.
But distinguish them all the time, or could they have them on, like Kate was mentioning, to 11, and then turn them off, and then you don't care what kind of light it is?
No, so the way it's written is that they would be required to comply after the time period.
Okay, that to me is an onerous burden on people. Unnecessary.
Well, wait, though, to comply means they have to extinguish their lights by 11 p.m. and they have to be directional.
That's not what Nick just said.
So there's lighting requirements. So essentially, we would in theory the non-conforming lighting stuff that's not really the light curfew. The light curfew is going to apply to people just turning off their lights. You know, everyone right now would need to turn them off at 11. That's just a performance requirement. But if the actual fixture itself, like let's say, is not shielded or is kind of like an open, like acorn style light that doesn't have any essentially, limitation on the light going upward, but also the Kelvin rating of the light fixture as well. Those are all those things that would be forced to comply after the enforcement period.
Okay.
So I have to agree with Kate. I think the dark skies movement is actually a good one, and I think giving residents 10 years to solve this problem is a pretty long window. I'd like to see it more incentive based as opposed to stick based, but 5 years for non-residential seems a little tight. But I mean, I'd be inclined to support the lighting ordinance as it is and remove the bird migration one. But I think the two of us are in the minority here, unless others believe that the 5 and 10 years is reasonable.
Yeah, I think for me, my concern is the buildings and the residential that kind of the older buildings that it may be difficult for them to kind of do this. So one thing I thought of is maybe we do, if your structure was built pre something, maybe you can request a waiver, but that opens a whole can of worms, I think. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a perfect solution to it.
Can I offer a suggestion? Los Altos is largely single family, right? What if we said that this would apply to single family, and then maybe for basically you'd have the 5 years as single family, but if you're commercial,
It's 10 years for single family.
okay, whatever it is. Okay, 10 years for single family. It's written as, okay, so leave that in place. But for commercial, you would say, okay, only if they're new, right? Yeah, only if they're changing their lighting or it's a new project.
Yeah. I can't support that still, because I think you're putting a burden on residential owners to say within 10 years, you have to hire an electrician, because not everyone's handy, go out and buy new lights and completely retrofit your home. I think a better solution is go talk to your neighbors.
All
I
right,
mean,
so
honestly, there are solutions to this that I don't think we need to be prescriptive about.
So you're a no on the current ordinance, right?
Yes, on this,
On
on that,
lighting,
on that,
you're a
on
no.
that part.
I'm a no.
No?
No.
Yes or no?
I think I could go either way, but I think that if we are split, then I think we could offer maybe our recommendations, and then the council
Send it
could-
back?
or I mean
Or
maybe the
s-
council. I mean it's going to go to council, so
Is that the next step, is to go to council?
So, I mean,
Could
they
could we take a no decision on something, especially since we apparently have 3 versus 3, since we don't have a 7th member?
Since it's just a recommendation, yes, you could.
Well, is Maris a no or a yes or?
He was half and half.
Oh man.
Is he abstaining on this one?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because I could see both sides. So I think some of the buildings, like some of the especially like older downtown buildings, I wonder if they're going to be able to, or if it's just going to be that they shut off all the lights because they can't comply, or they just don't want to. And then also, is someone gonna just drive around and see? I don't know.
The
how
lighting enforcement officer?
Like, I wonder who's gonna check
well,
these.
It's like any
Nick
other
has that
zoning
fancy
code.
car. He can
Yeah.
drive
We
around
don't
and do
live
it.
in a police state.
No, yeah.
We
Well,
absolutely don't live in a police state.
during
So
the day-
only time it's gonna apply, people are gonna have to complain
Yes.
because they are bothered.
Yes.
And then the city's gonna say, all right, there is a code violation, oh, you're out of compliance. So this actually gives someone kind of like a right to complain about something that is legitimately, intrusive. And where there are no complaints, there isn't gonna be any kind of enforcement because we don't live in a police state. That's why I think, let's just pilot this or, send it along and see how it plays out.
Parking enforcement by day, lighting enforcement by night. So there's not enough support to move this forward as is. So I would like to make a motion I move that we do not adopt the bird-safe design standards and that we recommend to the council that we send this back or look at the lighting performance standards to provide more of an incentive-based approach as opposed to a penalty-based approach. Is there any support for that?
I would second the motion.
That's, I'm sorry, that's with retrofitting, right? Not.
The entire lighting performance ordinance?
I'm okay with the lighting performance for new construction. I'm just not okay with the retrofitting part.
For new construction?
Yes, the compliance period is new builds.
So is that a friendly amendment?
That is a friendly amendment.
So apply the lighting performance for new construction and perhaps look at incentives for the retrofit side?
Yes.
Well, that's even better than what Joe proposed, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, so can you say it one more time? It's
So what I would do, if you look at the chart, I'm just using the chart, I would put a
Which chart?
friendly.
Which chart are
The
you?
chart on page 166 that they had projected.
Oh,
up
the
there.
green,
The green
yeah,
one.
got it.
I would propose that with regard to new builds in the lighting, we adopt it or recommend it. With existing structures, I would take out the compliance period, so it doesn't apply to existing structures.
Okay, so I would, since it was my original motion and it was seconded, I think the friendly amendment to have this apply to new construction, I accept that portion of it, but I'd like to continue to suggest incentives for the retrofits for both commercial as well as residential. So does the seconder like that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Does that motion make any sense to staff? Not really?
Okay, so you're gonna you're gonna apply the ordinance to new construction.
And remodel or just new construction?
There's a standard, isn't there, for remodeling where, like, if you're touching more, I know, like, when we remodeled, we had to put in fire sprinklers because we touched some percentage of our house. Isn't there a standard
So
like
that
that?
not for this one, no.
Not for this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
'Cause
I would
it's-
say if you're touching, and we can just ask Nick what the right percentage is of your house, then you should be required to do this.
So generally, we do like anything over 50% is kind of this simple number.
So I would consider a remodel of 50% or more to be a new build. For
Okay.
the purposes of this ordinance, if
So,
people agree.
so I'll try to restate it. The motion is to not approve the bird safe design and for the lighting performance standards to approve the portion for new builds and remodels in excess of 50%. And for existing structures to look at providing an incentive program to incent renovation of the lighting systems. Did I get that right?
Yes, I think so.
So friendly amendment accepted. We have a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Well, wait, I would like to, are you, okay, so I just want to say, I had a few comments about this that were kind of in the wording of it. And I don't know if you guys have any appetite to hear any of that.
If it's quick, because we're in the middle of a motion, Kate. So
Well,
would you like to make a
usually you
friendly?
make a motion, and we never talked,
We had a full discussion period.
okay,
So
never mind.
Would
Would
you,
no,
would you
forget
like
it.
to make a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to make a friendly amendment.
All right. Let us know which
Okay,
section you're on.
Okay, so I'll go quick. And I don't know the page because I don't have page numbers on here, but it's item, okay, let me see. Appendix, well, you know where it says Appendix A, lighting performance standards.
Okay, so we're on lighting, yes.
Okay, so-
14.91.
Okay, 14.91, 020 definitions. So it says security lighting.
Okay, it's page 179 for people,
Oh,
page numbers.
is that, okay, they
Yeah.
match with yours, okay, 79. So, security lighting, I'd like that to say, security lighting means motion-activated lighting. Because if you just say security lighting is okay, which this ordinance says, you know, it's an exception, then you're gonna have lights on, you know, then someone says, I have this for security purposes. You've just kind of blown a giant loophole in the ordinance. So I thought, okay, if someone deems some lighting to be there for the, you know, the purposes of an area, making it secure, then it should really just be motion activated.
Is there a reason that security lighting is specified that way? Is that a standard definition?
No, I wouldn't object to the inclusion of motion activated. It's most security lighting, that is how it functions.
Okay, so lighting intended, motion activated lighting intended to detect intrusions, would that
Yes,
solve?
just motion activated for security lighting.
Well, I wouldn't want to get rid of the other portions of that.
No, yeah, all I'm proposing is that we add security lighting means motion activated lighting intended to detect intrusions or other criminal activity occurring on a property or site.
Right, that's what I just said. So,
Well, I have a question about that. Not all security lighting is necessarily motion activated. So I think it needs to be, if we were going to specify how the light turns on, then we're limiting that. So that I think one of the, if it's security, if it's intended to prevent people from breaking in and doing that sort of thing, it doesn't matter how it turns on.
so it could be on all night, or it could be motion activated.
It would depend, yes. I mean,
Security and/or
That's what I'm proposing, that we don't want lights staying on all night.
Well, if it's security, it might, there might be a good reason to do that. I don't know. I don't want to foreclose possibilities when there's something, you know, where the light really does have to be on all night.
All right.
I grant that's probably a rare case.
All right, so
And
you don't accept the friendly amendment then?
I don't think I accept that friendly amendment. I mean,
Okay.
We can put in language about motion activated light if we want, add that. But I don't want to foreclose the possibility that there would be something, and again, you know.
Okay, well,
Okay.
that's simply a definition.
Okay,
Yeah.
what is your next one then?
Well, under extensions on 1491.070, you could say in D extension, except for lighting provided for security purposes and, you know, motion activated. So that,
It's page 184.
184?
Right.
Thank
Because
you.
you could have motion activated lighting for safety rather than security. You know, that somebody going upstairs or
184.
something like that, so it lights up when somebody's there, but not
I'm not,
otherwise.
That's my PDF page. It's probably might be different.
is it 070? What item under 070, Kate?
it's, it's on page 183.
Yes, what item number?
D.
D. Okay, so what would you like to change?
In the middle where it says except for lighting provided.
So I when I read that, to me, it's kind of came across as like this gaping loophole, like, oh, anyone can claim this light is for security purposes. So if we're trying to create a dark sky and someone insists that a light is needed for security purposes, then I think it ought to be motion activated so that it's only providing light when there is need for it.
But Kate, I think if we eliminate the compliance period for retrofitting, for retrofits, this goes away. You don't, new construction, we have no issue with.
Okay.
So I think this is less relevant.
I, as the originator of the motion, I do not think us wordsmithing the language that our professional staff pulled together is an appropriate use of our time. So I do not accept that. Because I'm not even sure what security lighting is. Like, is it all motion activated? I don't think it all is. So,
But Joe, this whole provision just goes away anyway, if we don't have retrofitting as part of the provision.
Okay.
Because it's the application of chapter to existing non-conforming lighting.
But if you provide an incentive as the motion.
You can define the incentive program any way you want.
know, yeah.
Okay.
Understand.
Well, I don't think there's support for the motion activated portions of either of those. So are there other ones you want to consider?
No.
Okay. Can we have a vote, please? On the original and friendly
just-
amendment motion.
Just so that I
Would you want to read it back?
Clear, is so it's to not support the bird safe ordinance in its entirety, and then to amend 1491-070 and apply the existing structures requirement to a 50% remodel threshold.
Think that's right?
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Disney,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahi,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinle,
Yes.
Commissioner Mensinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roach,
Yes.
and Chair Benenato.
Yes.
That's unanimous recommendation.
All right. Have fun with that one, Jonathan. Moving on, I think we are on to commissioners' reports and comments. Does anyone have anything here? Looking to my left? Looking to my right? I have two quick items. One is Nick sent us all an email around the League of California Cities Planning Commissioner Academy in March of 2025. Kate and I attended the one in Long Beach last year when Nick ditched us for dinner. I will point out, not that I'm over it yet, and I thought it was really helpful. And so I'd recommend, if people are interested in attending, I think it's a worthwhile use of time. And this one is in Santa Rosa, I think, so it's drivable instead of flyable. So if you guys could let Stephanie know, let Stephanie know if anybody's interested. I think probably have room for two, maybe budget.
Yeah, usually we accommodate for two. I would say is that the league does, because they rotate, and since this one is a kind of like northern area, is if you are interested, please let us know. Honestly, within the next month would be really good, because the position or the seats do fill up quite quickly.
And I don't recall if we have to get council approval for something like that, but we
No, for anything that is sponsored by the League of California Cities, it is included as essentially the pre-approved conference package for council and commission.
Great.
But you will have to report out when you come back.
Yes, I remember someone gave me a hard time about not getting council approval previously or something. But okay, and number two is I don't know if all of you got an email from the FPPC this afternoon stating there's a new law that goes into effect January 1st that requires electronic filing of Form 700. So I'd like to ask staff to let us all know when our next 700s are due. I think last year they told us, yours is due by March. So when I first saw this, I was like, I got to get this together by January 1st, but I don't think that's the case. So if you guys could keep us in compliance, that would be awesome.
Yeah, just so you guys know, they were going to do away with the free platform and stuff, and then there was a big outcry, and so it's really just kind of memorializing backwards again.
Okay. All right.
But the filing was always electronic, wasn't it? There was no paper filing. No, but I mean, in just in the last couple of years, it's always been electronic.
Yeah.
And it retains what you've put in before.
You could file it in person.
Oh, okay.
You didn't have to do it electronically, it's just only.
Oh, I got it, okay.
All right.
All right.
Sorry, yeah.
Let's, please.
Also, the council looked at the parking study. I think it was last week. I couldn't attend that meeting, but I thought the parking study, if anyone has a chance to look at it, I think it's interesting in terms of what we have now and what we're thinking about doing with the affordable housing project and the park and the theater. So yeah. Great.
And next is potential future agenda items. I think we heard a few ideas during the El Camino project discussion. Are there specific things that people want to agendize for the future? Anybody?
Well, I do have a question, I think, touching on Kate's comments, and elaborate, Kate, if you're interested. I would be curious to know what, with the objective standards, is there anything we can do such that when we do have the infill of buildings which are being built 10 feet from one another to make life a little more pleasant for everybody on those setbacks?
You don't have to answer it now.
Yeah.
Well, for setback, well, one thing I do want to point out is the ironic part is that the proposed project at the project you just reviewed was fully compliant with that side yard setback. However, the Alton used density bonus to construct closer to the side yard. So it's kind of a moot point professionally for me, is that one, they already took advantage of the same thing that the other is actually complying with. Fundamentally, one of the things that Mr. Vidovich didn't illuminate at all, but his architect, they did actually look at that and offset a lot, not all, because some of them aren't perfect and you can't do it just because of egress and everything, but really did offset a lot of their balconies so that they're not, reaching out to shake your hand of your neighbor, essentially. So a lot of them are offset, but with window placement, there's very little, because of the building code with egress, is that we would then kind of be playing, Tetris all the time with the placement of the bedrooms. So multifamily housing, it ends up becoming pretty cumbersome. So, I mean, I think maybe we can look at something about like the offset, to have it as like a prescriptive kind of provision. It's just going to be hard when you're kind of relating it to an off-site, essentially kind of anomaly.
And how about encouraging that BMR units are more representative of the market rate units in a building? Because clearly, I mean, I understand the economic trade-off that was discussed tonight, but they clearly are going to be substandard to the market rate units.
I was trying to pull something that was previously written by HCD regarding this specific topic that kind of gives more of an illumination of the state's perspective on this topic as it was applied in a previous jurisdiction that I worked for. I'm going to actually reach out to a colleague to see what I can get from like a written transmittal from them, because there is a limiting factor with what we can actually do about like the unit size requirements for units. Even though that we have a requirement that talks about the proportional or kind of the average size. So I can look for that just because I think that might orient the conversation a little bit better.
Okay. So can we don't have to discuss all these, but can we agendize those two for future discussion?
BMR, the
and-
BMR, and then
and the buildings next to each other, what can we do about that from an objective standard? And were there other objective standards that we were thinking about that were problematic? I think the BMR had multiple facets, the size, the location next to garbage dumps or recycling rooms. Yeah.
I think the location within the building is
Yeah.
kind of the catch-all.
I thought there were other objective standards we were worried
I
about.
think we were talking about lighting, actually, in El Camino. I think that came up.
Lighting on El Camino as an objective standard?
I think one of them was just kind of the industry standards. So kind of I think some of the waivers talked about like height basically being a certain way because of utilities, the fire department not being able to reach. So some of these things, I think once we know kind of this industry standard, then we're going to have to maybe go back and make adjustments or just keep giving waivers. But I think like fire department takes precedence over our objective standard in that case.
Well, if the fire department is always going to require 20 feet, then maybe we should consider changing it to 20 feet. Is that their standard?
No, so it depends on the height of the building. So
Oh,
it's essentially
okay.
the apparatus with the way that it's intended to kind of lean,
Okay.
essentially, and kind of create the degree angle that they look for.
Okay.
And their standards do kind of change over time.
All right.
One of the things that I noted is that we talked about like railing materials that maybe the commission might want to like maybe be more prescriptive on. If that's the case, it's just remembering is that things can be waived essentially. I also think this specific project is actually a good example. Didn't want to obviously belabor it in the actual item itself, but there are some higher transmission lines. They're not actually super high, but they are transmission lines that will remain because they are grandfathered under the PUC rules from the state. And so on that side of the building, ironically, the Vidovich project actually will already comply because he's providing or proposing a concrete form building. But the person immediately across the street, which that project has since expired and is void now, that they were actually having to go through what is considered the AMMR, or an alternate means and methods with fire because of those lines. So there's some of those weird material things that when it's on El Camino, we're gonna kind of have some nuances to some things.
Okay, so Kate, we skipped over the lighting thing. So what was the objective standard?
I just thought, I thought we had a conversation at the last meeting about future agenda items, and we talked about, I talked about, maybe having a group meeting, we would go and look at El Camino at night and evaluate, what seems to be working, lighting standards that are, that function well or not too intrusive. As more and more people move on to El Camino, I think, lighting's going to become an issue. So if we can get it right and have objective standards so we're not debating lighting anymore and people know exactly what to do, I think that just makes things better for everyone.
But we just did a lighting ordinance, right? So is that, those are the new rules.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen to them.
Right.
And
So you're suggesting a field trip on El Camino to look at
fact-finding,
lighting?
there's always more to learn.
Okay.
Didn't we also talk about the stacked garages, stacked cars in the garages?
Oh, yeah, field trip for that.
Field trip for that.
Yeah, so lots of fun things for us to do.
We could rent a bus.
All right, you guys will keep a list of this stuff and keep us busy?
Yeah, we've talked about a couple of things already, so it'll
Okay.
be something that we plan accordingly in the new year.
All right, any other future agenda items, or can we get out of here?
I want to talk about CEQA.
CEQA?
We're working
Are
on
you,
it. CEQA
are you
is
serious?
in
I am, yes. I am.
Okay, so that is a,
working on a PowerPoint. Garrett and I are working on a PowerPoint, but it has to go through these.
Right.
All
Because we
right.
know what we're
Can we
talking
hear about the next meeting and what's on the agenda?
oh,
wanna
is
know?
there input on the next meeting and agenda?
There is going to be a meeting on December 5th, and there are 3 items.
Like projects or,
Yes, 3 projects.
wow, man, people are coming out of the woodwork.
Pancake
No
house.
code amendments.
Oh,
All right.
darn.
All right, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Had to try it out. Yeah. I don't even know where this comes from.